In 1835, people discovered the internet. Not literally, obviously. Nobody was posting bad takes from a telegraph pole. But spiritually? Oh yeah. They had newspapers, confidence, and no fact-checking department strong enough to stop a man from saying, "Guys, there are bat people on the moon." This story starts with the New York Sun, a cheap penny newspaper trying to get attention in a city full of newspapers screaming for attention. And in August of 1835, the Sun basically said, "What if we publish science fiction and call it astronomy?" The articles claimed that Sir John Herschel, a real and respected astronomer, had made incredible discoveries from an observatory in South Africa. This was a great choice because Herschel was famous, smart, and inconveniently far away. You couldn't exactly DM him and ask, "Hey John, did you discover lunar goat men, or is this bullshit?" According to the paper, Herschel had a gigantic telescope with ridiculous magnifying power. This telescope could supposedly see the moon in such detail that astronomers observed lunar forests, oceans, animals, and eventually, people with wings. Because apparently, once you invent a fake telescope, you might as well floor it. At first, the report stayed sort of believable if you had never met science. There were rocks, there were valleys, there were landscapes. Fine. The moon has geography. Big whoop. Then came the animals. The Sun described horned goat-like creatures hanging out on green lunar turf because the moon, as everyone knows, is basically a petting zoo with worse parking. Then came water birds, strange amphibian blob things, and other creatures that sounded like God was beta testing DLC. And then finally, the main event, the Vespertilio Homo. That is Latinish for Batman, because even 1830s newspaper scams knew fake Latin makes nonsense look educated. These lunar bat people supposedly walked around, flew around, built stuff, had conversations, and generally lived better lives than many readers in New York. And people ate this up. The lazy explanation is that everyone in 1835 was stupid. The real explanation is more uncomfortable. People wanted to believe it, and the article dressed the lie in science-flavored clothing. It name-dropped a real scientist. It described machines in technical detail. It arrived in installments like Netflix for people with cholera. Also, science at the time was exciting. Telescopes were improving. Nobody knew where the reasonable line was yet. So when a newspaper said, "Good news, the moon has winged dudes," a lot of people said, "Honestly, sure." The writer was likely Richard Adams Locke, who later said the whole thing was satire, which is convenient because "it was satire" is what every guy says after his worst joke destroys Thanksgiving. To be fair, Locke may have been mocking wild claims about life on other worlds, but if you make the fake thing too fun, people stop noticing the lesson and start asking where the moonbat merch is. Eventually, the hoax was exposed, but the damage was already done. The Sun sold papers, other newspapers repeated it, and Sir John Herschel had to deal with being famous for discoveries he did not make. The Great Moon Hoax is funny because it's old, but it's also annoying because it's not really old at all. Change penny newspaper to viral post, and suddenly this feels way too familiar. The lesson is not that people in the past were gullible. The lesson is that humans have always had the same tiny goblin living in our brains, and that goblin hears, "There are sexy bat people on the moon," and whispers, click it! If you enjoyed watching history turn into a badly drawn crime scene, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what weird historical nonsense I should cover next. And if you learned something today, I'm sorry, that was not supposed to happen.